This is the Cycling Over 60 podcast, Season 3, Episode 13, Zwift Meetup Rides. And I'm your host, Tom Butler. I'm starting out with some sad news this week. Last week, we talked about Kelly's dad, Norm, being in the hospital. We thought that he had rallied and was doing better, but last week he passed away. I want to acknowledge Norm because he had a massive impact on me. He always embraced me as part of his family. Norm spent a number of years before retirement as the chief of pathology and laboratory medicine at a VA hospital. However, he was one of the most humble people you could ever meet. He loved his family deeply, and his wise words will certainly be missed. He was 88 years old, and he never stopped learning about all kinds of things, especially how the body works. And almost everything you hear about health on the podcast was partly influenced by conversations with Norm. His presence will continue to be missed for the rest of our lives. The new year has started out with the continuation of a problem from last year. I have not yet lifted weights this year. 2 weeks in, and I have 0 upper body workouts. So it is time for me to ramp up my habit building efforts. I want to once more point to 2 resources that I think provide excellent insight on how to change habits. One is How to Change by Catherine Milkman, and the other is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Using insights from these 2 books, I'm going to be increasing my efforts to create a system that pushes me to do upper body workouts. As I mentioned last episode, I have to see upper body strength as integral to my identity as a cyclist. I am working on an interview for an upcoming podcast that will help imprint in my mind the concept that cyclists have to have upper body strength. Everywhere you turn, you see comments that for cyclists to perform at their very best, they need upper body and core strength. However, the reasons for this seem to me to have to do with being able to counter when massive force is being applied to pedals. For example, when climbing. However, I'm just not applying massive force to the pedals. Even when I'm climbing, I am grinding up hills without really mashing on the pedals. So I question whether or not I would actually see a benefit from having more upper body strength. And I think this is key. If I found myself suffering less up a hill as I increased upper body strength, I believe that would definitely push me into the gym. Suffering when climbing is one of the key motivators for me. I hate stopping while going up a hill on a group ride. At the end of February is the Chilly Hilly ride. The ride is 33 miles with some legitimate hills to climb. I will be thinking about this ride almost every day between now and when it happens. I will be thinking specifically how I don't want to step off the bike on any of the hills. And that is a huge motivator for me to go on hilly rides until then. But none of that motivational energy gets transmitted to getting into the gym to do upper body workouts. I think I might need to find some way of putting my upper body strength on public display, the same way that my performance up hills is displayed on group rides. That might be a key to having it in my mind more often. When I think about doing something that tests my upper body strength, it seems like it is very easy to hurt myself. With cycling, I don't worry about doing damage to my body, but upper body lifting seems much more risky. I've had shoulder problems in the past that I feel I could aggravate by pushing myself too hard, and I also worry about back pain. I'm definitely going to need to get some input on how to do this safely. I could schedule an upper body test. I could just schedule an upper body test in 3 months and report here on the podcast about how it went. But I think I will try to do something more public. Of course, I'll keep you posted on anything I come up with. And if any of you have ideas about this, let me know. I have to admit that one factor that is a barrier is that I don't like the atmosphere at the gym. I feel very out of place. When I am out on the bike with people my age, I feel very comfortable. The 3-day Cascade Bicycle Club event that Kelly and I did last year was a perfect example. But the gym feels like I'm in a foreign land. So I'm going to do something about this. I don't know exactly what yet, but stay tuned. Whatever happens, I'm really motivated that I can share on the next episode that I did my goal of 2 days of upper body workouts. I feel extremely fortunate to have met everyone who has connected with me because of the podcast. It is truly a pleasure whenever I hear from someone who has listened. And this week is a great example. Bruce Madinger reached out to me after I talked about my interest in Zwift and shared that he does a meetup with some friends on Zwift. He agreed to come on the podcast and share what they do. Here is the great conversation we had about Zwift and also about Bruce's cycling journey. I want to welcome Bruce Madinger to the Cycling Over 60 podcast. Thanks for joining me, Bruce.
Well, this is exciting. I'm looking forward to sharing quite a bit. I'm Bruce Madinger from Fishers, Indiana. Thank you.
A great part of the country.
Yes.
I want to thank you for being a listener, first off, and then also thanks for coming on and talking about your cycling journey. We're going to start here, like I start a lot of times. Tell me about your early cycling memories.
Well, my earliest memory is when I was very young, probably around first or second grade. I was learning how to ride a bicycle, and I remember my sister pushed me down the front yard hill on a blue bike. And I remember that's how I learned to ride. She just kept pushing me down until I got to the bottom of the hill without falling. So that was kind of a fun memory. Also, as a child growing up, I would say I was a free-range child. We played in the creek. I rode my bicycle. I can remember riding miles around our house to all different kinds of places. That was a great experience growing up, quite different than our kids, for instance.
Was that in the Fisher, Indiana area still?
Yes,
Okay.
we grew up at that time on the north side of Indianapolis.
Okay.
And so I've been a lifelong resident of Indianapolis. That was on 46th Street. Later in life, we were up near 71st Street. And now we live further north in Fishers.
Gotcha. Okay.
When I was 13, I received a Huffy 10-speed for Christmas. I have a photo somewhere of me using the bike for the first time in about 2 feet of snow on the driveway. And my dad's there kind of helping me with it, making sure all's good. And that was a Huffy 10-speed with caliper brakes, and it was really great. I would ride it all the time down to my friend's house that was about a mile away, and ride it around the area.
Did you know that you were going to get that bike, or was that a surprise?
I don't think I knew I was going to get that bike, and it was a surprise. And I tell you what, I really liked it. That's the first bike that I owned that I received that was new to me.
That's a tough time of year in that area to get a new bike because, like you said, it's snowy outside and everything, and you want to jump on it. It's not the best riding conditions outside.
Well, I can't remember too much. Yes, you're right. It's not the best riding conditions, but the snow goes away every once in a while during the winter time, and I could get out and ride around. So I had a lot of fun with that bike.
That's
In
awesome.
fact, after college, that was the bike I used to start getting into longer bike rides with another friend of mine, maybe upwards to 30, 40 miles.
As you grew older, getting into college and things like that, what was your biking experiences then?
Two things that are interesting. One, in college, I never rode a bicycle. It surprised me. It just didn't happen. I was at a small school in Ada, Ohio, which is Ohio Northern University, and it's flat, it's open, it's whatever. You could walk anywhere in town easily, and that's what I did. In my junior year, I went to Europe, and I studied in Basel, Switzerland, and Bregenz, Austria. And the interesting thing there is bicycles were very prevalent, but I never rode a bicycle but once. I borrowed a bicycle for one day and rode up to the French border, I believe it was, and back. But beyond that, I never rode a bicycle. Public transit was everywhere, and that's what I used.
So looking back at that, do you think you wish you would have experienced more places? It seems like there's quite a bit of cycling that you didn't experience by not getting on a bike as much.
It would have been a different experience. I honestly don't know, because I did a lot of traveling, again, by train, everywhere. And I visited a lot of places. But now that when my wife and I travel, we stop at different kinds of restaurants than I did probably in college days. In college days, when I was in Europe traveling on the trains, I had a bag that was provided to me by the Schweizer Bundesverein, And it was where I stored cheese, yogurt, salami, and a knife and bread. That's what I ate.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Think Rick Steves, and that's what I did.
Right. Awesome. So, it's common for people that as they get out and start working and everything, that you lose the time, I guess, to put into cycling. What happened with you as you got older?
Well, we were talking about that at dinner, and we had two children. I was married. We just didn't do bicycling. It just didn't happen. The two children occupied our time, and it was later on. In fact, I did some thinking about it, and it was January 2001. I was sledding with the kids on a hill, and I don't know how I hit the one tree, but I did, and I broke my pelvic bone.
Oh, wow.
Off to the hospital I go. 2 months later, I'm finally back at work, basically able to walk and be in good shape. And I decided at that time, that was January 1. And so 2 months would be January, February, early March. I'm going to go get a bicycle and I'm going to go out and start riding again. And by June of that year, I had my bicycle. I bought a Raleigh C40 comfort bike, not knowing what I wanted,
Right.
and started riding 7, 8, 900 miles a year. Then my son was in Boy Scouts. And the whole family had bicycles by then because we went out and bought them. And he decided we wanted a bicycling merit badge. And so one of the rules on it, or one of the accomplishments, would be a 50-mile ride. Well, my daughter, my son, and I went on that ride with the Scouts for 50 miles. And it was all day. And we just thought it would never end with all the wind and the cool weather and everything. But that's one of the early things I can think about. And that ride just seemed to go forever. Now I can go out in that same area and do 50 miles, start, early morning and be done by lunch and not think another thing of it, eat a couple bars and drink some water.
Did your kids keep up with cycling or not really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, my son has done triathlons. My daughter has also done triathlons with the bike. She used to commute to work on her bicycle about 10 miles. She teaches at a university, now lives on campus. So she walks, but she has her bicycle and she rides. So we all ride. My wife and I do rides together through the city or on trails. And we also had a trip in Europe on a bike. Mhm.
Okay. So talk about the local scene there. How would you talk about different rides in the area and kind of how Indianapolis is and all that is from a cycling perspective?
So I early on joined Central Indiana Bicycle Association, which is the major bicycle club here in Indianapolis. They sponsor rides and have different rides around, and they have rides every weekend and during the week. I would participate in longer rides on the weekends with them from time to time. And they also support a ride called the Hilly 100, which is a 2-day event riding about 50 miles per day in southern Indiana near Bloomington. And so I've participated in that 2 times. They also have other rides that are fun to join. And I did meet a good group of people doing those rides.
There's a tri-state ride. What states are the states in the tri-state ride?
Right. So since we had the bicycles, in 2009 I bought a Cannondale road bike.
Okay.
And we've done some trail rides and some long rides as a family. One of the rides we did was the Tri-State, and it left from basically called Hammond, Indiana, through downtown Chicago along the waterfront, lakefront, all the way through downtown Lincoln Park and back up, and ended at Racine, Wisconsin. So that was Tri-States, Indiana,
Gotcha.
Illinois, and Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
And we did that as a family, all four of us. Yes.
It's been a number of years ago now. Does that ride still go on?
Yes, I believe it does. It was sponsored by the same group that does the uh, two different rides across Illinois and some other activities in Illinois,
Okay.
a for-profit organization. Mhm.
I imagine it's changed quite a bit since 2009. I would think that there's some bike infrastructure there that that maybe wasn't there. I haven't been back in that area. I grew up in that area, and I haven't been back there in a long time. But that's one of those things I want to do. I want to figure out some way to bike around Lake Michigan because that would take me back to some earlier
Or there
days.
are bike routes around Lake Michigan. Adventure Cycling has those routes.
Okay, okay,
And one feature of it is if you don't want to do the whole lake, you can cut across on the car ferry that's still operated from Michigan to Wisconsin. And I don't want to quote the cities because I'll get them wrong.
yeah. So that's probably farther north. I'm guessing.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you want to
That'd be
just do the
interesting.
north part up through the
Yeah,
UP and back down, you don't have to do the south part through Chicago.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Chicago wasn't as intimidating as you would think it would be because when we went from Indiana, we basically within a couple miles were on trails along Lake Michigan shoreline,
Right,
literally on the
right.
shoreline, the whole way to Lincoln Park,
Yeah,
all the way through downtown.
yeah. Again, I imagine that infrastructure is only expanded.
Right. And then from there, it basically went over to what was a high-speed interurban line that went from Chicago to Milwaukee and followed that route up into Wisconsin. And then I can't really remember much about Wisconsin, but we were never on highways,
Okay.
which
Yeah,
was good.
yeah. Well, that's on my list of things to do. So, and then you mentioned some other rides that you and your wife have done. Are there any that you would highlight as like things that you thought were just awesome rides?
Well, talking about long distance rides, I've done the rain ride. That's the ride across Indiana. It's about 164 miles long, and I've done that 5 times too many.
Okay.
So I've done it with a family. My son wanted to ride across the state of Indiana. He thought that was the greatest thing to do. That was a goal of his when he was in high school. We found that ride, and the first year we didn't quite make it. We made 100 miles. The next year we made all 164 miles.
Okay.
And then we've had family members join us, and we've done it as a team. We call ourselves Crank It Up.
Okay.
And our team Crank It Up rode that trip 2 times. And then my son and his wife and I rode it once the last time. Mhm.
That's so fun. That's awesome.
And then we've also ridden up in Wisconsin along the trail, the 400. That was in Sparta, Wisconsin. We radiated out there on several trails with a family member that lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. The Trail of the 400 is, in my railroad background, is the fastest train between Chicago and Minneapolis, St. Paul, was on the Northwestern, and it completed that route in 400 minutes.
Oh,
It was one
wow.
of the
Okay.
fastest trains at that time in the world.
Wow. How would you describe that environment, the wilderness, the kind of that ride? What are you experiencing as far as the environment is concerned?
Well, we love the rail trails that are out in the countryside because usually you're in woods that are quite scenic. You come around into small towns. You can stop for lunch at a small restaurant and you can move on. That trail just happened to have a long tunnel in it. And that was kind of fun because, when else would you do that? Just great riding. My wife really enjoys doing trail rides. Number two, you don't have steep grades. Steepest grade for a railroad is what, 2.5%. So that's pretty easy to accomplish.
Northern Wisconsin has a lot of lakes. I don't know if that trail goes through that kind
No,
of area. Okay, okay.
it's not the lake area of Wisconsin. This is a little higher land. And my daughter teaches geology. She could tell you exactly what it is, but there's something about the ice age dropped a lot of dirt there.
Okay, okay.
And that's why it's higher land at that place. But I may be wrong on that. Speaking of a trail ride that I thought was fantastic, later after the kids went to college and were out of the house, so to say, we've done some 1 week rides. One of them was the Gap, that's the Cumberland Gap, and the C&O from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. And the amazing part of that ride was when we were up in central Pennsylvania, up in the wooded area, the forest was wide open, large trees, and you could see all around. It
Wow.
was just phenomenal compared to most forests that we see these days. It didn't have the undergrowth in it because of the tall trees and probably because of deer. They eat
Okay.
most of the undergrowth anymore in lots of forests. But that was absolutely phenomenal. We rode with some relatives out of Pennsylvania, and that was a 1 week ride and stayed at bed breakfasts along the way. Just a great opportunity.
I hear Pennsylvania can kind of be hilly. Is that
But this was all rail trails.
okay?
So
Okay.
again, no
Okay.
more than 2.5%. And the
Okay.
interesting thing, as you're going towards um, the east, we rode from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. There was one area that was about 5 or 6 miles, constant downhill at about 2%. And you could just fly.
Right.
It
Right.
was fun.
That's
On
cool.
those rides, I take my Canyon road light bike, which is more of a fitness bike with a little larger tires, probably 35 millimeter tires on it. And it seems to do pretty well on trails.
Now, is that a flat bar bike or yeah?
Yes, a flat
Okay.
bar bike, bought it, quote, mail order, I guess nowadays on the internet. It had it delivered by FedEx one day, and 2 hours later, I had it all assembled up and running on the driveway.
Nice.
My son and I were in Germany at one time in Koblenz, and right there is the headquarters of Canyon, right there on the square. I remember seeing it, and that's probably why I bought the bike
Okay.
years later.
Okay.
Two other major 1 week trails I've gone on, actually three or four other ones, is the Ohio to Erie Trail. So that's from Cincinnati to Cleveland. And we did that in about 5 days with a group of riders from here in central Indiana. And then also the Katy Trail, I did that with the same group, basically from Clinton, Missouri to St. Louis area. And the last summer rode the Great Ohio Bike Adventure, which is a 1 week ride, call it 350, 400 miles of riding every day, camping, and then going around. Highlight of all the 1 week rides was the Rag Ride, the 50th anniversary ride across Iowa. And that was quite a mob scene. What a different kind of riding that was. I'm not sure that's my style. And
Okay.
moving every night camping and the heat and humidity was quite intense.
Now, do you think that that's Ragbri is something that everybody needs to experience because it's such a unique experience, or not necessarily?
I think it's a great experience. I'm This doesn't sound very nice, but I'm one and done. I got that check mark.
Okay.
And I'm one and done on
Right.
that ride. It was a great
Right.
opportunity. I went with an outfitter. The negative was I didn't go with anyone I knew. So I had some camaraderie, but not a whole lot. And the most challenging thing about the whole ride was finding food. I know that
Okay.
sounds weird,
Well, no.
but I went in the 50-year anniversary, and there were literally, I'm thinking 30, 40,000 riders.
Yeah.
And lines were long. I didn't do the food right at the first. It was a lot of walking when you got to a campsite to get food, and it was challenging. It was one of the more challenging things I've done.
Well, I think about some of those towns must be, what, 3,000 people, 2,000 people that you roll
Yeah,
through, and then
yeah,
you've got 40,000 people rolling through there. That's wild.
yeah. And I mean, you're buying food from vendors. The food was good. I kind of got grilled cheese sandwiches a lot because that vendor was easy to find, and other food, and get a beer and sit in a tent for lunch. But it was challenging. I mean, the number of riders just phenomenal. I think if I had gone with a team, as they call them, and ridden with a group, that I was a little better organized about food, it would have been a substantially different experience.
So it sounds like the moral of the story is Find somebody who's like really experienced at RAGBRAI and really pick their brain as far as, how do you make this work as far as food is concerned?
Or go with somebody that's already done it and has insight. A friend of mine has done it quite a bit, and he goes with a team of 4 or 5 people, and his experience is totally different than mine. They didn't
Okay.
camp most of the time,
Okay.
and different. Anyway, so great experience. I've done a lot of camp. I've done backpacking. I've done hiking. I've done canoeing up in the Boundary Waters a couple times. Just a different way to do an experience. I have nothing negative to say about it. It's just the second time would have been better, but I doubt I got my check mark
Gotcha.
going with that.
Gotcha. Right. And the 50th anniversary ride is not a bad time to get your check mark for it.
I
Right?
got the jersey that has the big L on it, and real proud of it. And I ride it I wear it from time to when I'm around town and people know what it is. Yes.
Nice.
Then the highlight of our 1 week trips was when we went with some family members to Austria for a week of riding in the Salzkammergut area. Salzkammergut is the area south of Salzburg, the Finger Lake system. So a friend of mine said he wanted to do a big adventure ride. What should we do next? I look it up. We go out to drink a couple beers at lunch, and I said, let's do this ride from St. Moritz, Switzerland to Innsbruck along the Inn River. Great idea. He says, I can't go away from my wife for more than a week. She just won't let it happen. Fine. So I just keep looking on this website, and I finally find it's got a website called Eurobike. They sponsored a ride, a 5-day ride from one hotel in that region where you ride along the lakes and rivers. So you don't have that much climbing to do. It's not mountain biking. It's mostly along paths, along lakes and rivers. Phenomenal. We stayed in a small town, Gossen, and stayed at a small hotel. The nicest people. By the end of the week, they were sad to see us leave. Just ate most of our meals, breakfast and dinner at their little restaurant. My wife said every turn was another photo. Literally every
Wow.
turn was just absolutely gorgeous along the lakes.
Wow.
That is an area that has a lot of history, beautiful lakes, mountains. Anywhere you have lakes, mountains, and money is typically a very beautiful area, and that's one of them. One day we had the opportunity to take a bike taxi up the mountain, and then we rode up to the next level higher, pushed our bikes much of the way, walked up 2 more lakes, and we were at a hiking hut at about 6,000 feet and had lunch and then walked back. Just a great opportunity. So if you do skiing and you're familiar with ski huts, this is for hikers. And in Europe, they have little sausage sandwiches or sausages available with salad and everything and a beverage. And then you walk back and it's just a grand time.
That's
Another memory
awesome.
was we were along Wolfgangsee and we were looking for a restaurant. We found one on the waterfront and we sat down at a table. And here comes one of the boats up the lake right by our table with all the tourists on it. And we just had a grand time on that trip.
So I am on the Eurobike website right now, and I'm looking at a
So
thing
click
here.
on destinations, Austria.
Okay. Well, I can't pronounce the Salzkammergut.
That's good enough.
Really? It says based in one hotel, famous lakes and suites. You think that's the route?
I don't think that's the route. That is the
Oh,
route.
oh, okay, okay.
That is it.
I will put a link to this ride in the show notes so that if people are curious about it, they can find it there.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, if anybody calls me, man, I can't speak highly enough of the experience we had. We were provided bicycles. We were provided the room. We did not opt for the board, but you might as well because it would have worked better anyway. It doesn't matter. And then they provided tickets for the train and the taxi. So one day you took the train one direction and rode back. Another day you took the train another direction and rode back. Then you did some loops. And one day we went up the mountain with the car taxi for the bicycles. Just worked out great.
Nice.
My wife said, best vacation ever.
That is awesome.
Then we were riding down the mountain, and we were on a highway. This is the only time we were really on a highway on this trip. To get back from the high place, we had lunch at the hut. We came down the mountain, and there was only one highway. And it was 2-lane, and there was traffic. And there were 4 cyclists. So I said, what we're going to do, we're going to split up to 2 groups. You know, my wife was going to be in front of me, and I was going to be behind her. And I told Karen, I said, you ride left of the white line. Do not try to stay on the white line. Take the lane. Don't be afraid to use the lane. And I was right behind her. And then about halfway down the mountain, you could just hear the air brakes of a big semi behind us. And I shouted up to Karen, I said, don't worry about it. He knows what to do. And by golly, when it freed up, he passed us. All's good. A couple cars passed us. Very respectful. 0 problems. No feeling like you're getting run off the road.
Yeah.
I was amazed.
Nice.
At the bottom of the mountain, Karen said, I didn't know what to do. I was afraid of my brakes because I didn't want to wreck or anything. I just let her rip. And then she just started flying down that mountain, and we got down to the bottom, and all was good.
Nice. Nice. Well, Bruce, I asked you to come on today for kind of a specific topic. And as people who listen to the podcast know, I have gotten more into doing Zwift rides. And I understand that you are pretty involved with Zwift. And I'd like you to talk about what you're doing on Zwift.
Right. The history of it is I run a group called Virtual Advanced Cycle Training. We borrowed that from the YMCA. We used to go to a class there that did some really intense 1.5-hour cycling spin classes. Well, the gentleman that ran that kind of decided he didn't have time to run it, so we did it on our own. A friend of mine and I worked on developing a strategy on Zwift called Meetups and do a group ride. And overlaid the Meetup is a workout. So what it's evolved to, now that we're all retired, we meet at 9:30 on Zwift. We all join the Meetup. We're rubber bands, so we stay together, and we all select the same workout. And so we all do the same ride for about an hour. Usually they're an hour long. We do about 15 miles. Everybody's effort is based on their own FTP. And then we run a Zoom call next to it. And usually there's about 6 or 7 of us. And we are on the call, and we can talk and see each other. So it works out really great. The benefit is we meet twice a week, and it really causes us to be focused, do a workout, achieve a goal, and stay focused in these winter months when outside riding is basically not feasible. Today we have 9 inches of snow on the ground. And so it's worked out really well. It's a group of us on Zwift doing a joint ride called a Meetup. I set that up, make invitations to everybody in our group. They join it. We all start at the same spot on the road. We always stay together, and we do a common workout. And we vary the workout from endurance on Wednesdays to HIIT workouts on Fridays typically. And it really helps focus our effort in staying active on Zwift.
I'm kind of curious. You said that this grew out of a YMCA class that you were doing, and it was led by an instructor. Do you feel like the workouts that you find on Zwift, that they are able to accomplish what the instructor was trying to accomplish?
I'm going to say, generally speaking, yes. Now, you have to remember we're 5 or 6, 7 years older than we were then.
Okay.
We have found that an hour works. Here's the beauty of the Zwift ride. We have several folks that use electric bikes exclusively and are older than I am. They can do the ride, and there's no shame. I mean, nobody knows what everybody else is doing so to say, and everybody's working. And if you put your effort to it and let the system do what it's supposed to do, it is truly a good workout, comparable to what we had at the class. The other benefit is we have more data points available than we did at the class. They got better towards the end, but on Zwift, you have your heart rate, your cadence, your watts. I mean, it's all driven by watts per kilogram, but that's not important in a workout. So we have those 3 data points that are available all the time. And it's a class driven by watts. Watts is what determines most of the workouts.
Right.
And so we've also done some workouts now that have cadence suggestions on them. And one of the gentlemen feels that his cadence has improved doing that cadence work on Zwift. So I would say it's very comparable. Little different setup. The YMCA class was in the evening, and my class that I do is at 9:30 now. We've transitioned it to during the day.
Okay. You talked about it being based on watts. The Zwift workout, they will move the power demand, based on a preset level in the workout on Zwift, and then so they're kind of giving you a heads up. You're going to go into a higher intensity, and that's linked to FTP, which for people that don't look at these things, that's functional threshold power. And so it seems like there's different ways within Zwift to set that FTP. Is that right?
Correct. The way to find your FTP is to do an FTP test. And we do the 45-minute traditional one. In fact, we're going to be doing it this Friday coming up. And we'll do it as a group, and it's a 20-minute segment where you just ride as hard as you can. And you do a little bit of warm-up beforehand. You got to get your heart rate up. My strategy in that test is to do, my current FTP is about 195. And I will go into that riding at about 195 and really monitor my heart rate and keep my heart rate way up in the red zone for the 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then that will set my FTP.
Gotcha.
And then you have ways to adjust your FTP if you don't like it, aka you don't want to work as hard.
When you say that, adjust your FTP, does that actually get logged someplace in Zwift as your
Yes,
FTP?
absolutely.
Okay.
Even if you don't do an FTP test, it will calculate an FTP for you automatically.
Okay.
And so all the workouts are based on, let's just say 5 minutes of warm up. Then you're at it, and they overlay a zone system 1 to 5. It's pretty easy to figure out. And then the workouts are just, you step up to a high wattage, then you step down for a while for rest, active recovery, back up, rest, active recovery, things like that.
Right.
They have approximately, if they have one, they have 200 workouts available. Technically, you can build your own workout if you want. They also, what I think is interesting, I've never done one, but they have a series of workouts to accomplish different goals. Like they have one series of workouts to increase your FTP, which is basically how much power you can generate. They have another workout, I believe they have one for racing and things like that. So there's a racing league on Zwift, all kinds of things. You can enter races. I don't do real well on races anymore. I'm in the last 10%, so I don't do races. But I certainly do group rides. And right now I'm doing Tour de Zwift, which is 7 rides over 7 weeks on different routes that are different amounts of effort or work.
Gotcha. You're doing a lot of cycling. So for you to come in and do an FTP test, that's probably a fine thing. I would just say to people, if you're like just getting back on a bike, or, you've been out of shape for a while and you're deciding to just Try to get in shape. Probably 20 minutes as hard as you can is not the best thing to do without like getting some clearance from a physician or something like that. So I'll just put that out there as a recommendation that get some clearance to ride hard before you do an FTP test.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit more about some rides might might be good for rubber banding and some might not be. What's the different kind of rides that they do?
Okay, so the rubber banding I'm talking about is the one that is in a meetup.
Right.
So a meetup is a very specific one where somebody sets up the ride and we ride 4, 5, 8, 10, 100 together, and you stay together no matter how much effort you put out. And for instance, let's just say somebody drops out for a minute because of something, a chain goes bad or something. They can drop way back, and within about 2 minutes, they'll be back up in the group. They'll just accelerate them in. They'll stay together, irrespective of the effort or the watts you are generating. In a
Right.
group ride that is on, if you're on Zwift and you just join a ride, they either they typically put a fence before and after the ride that you can't go further forward than that or further back than that and stay in a certain area. But a lot of the group rides that you just see advertised on Zwift on the homepage, landing page, are very large events. So
Okay.
you have hundreds of people. Yesterday, I rode on the first of the Tour de Zwift. There were right at 1,045 riders in my group. Um, I don't know where I finished versus the whole group, but usually I finish at about 80 percentile. I'm down, way down. I did really well yesterday, but it was flat. That's where I excel.
So, sometimes I could envision doing a Zwift ride with people. Some people would want to do it in a more mellow way, and some people would want to be more aggressive. Some people might even want to, within our group, go for sprints or something like that. Do you see that as possible within a group ride situation? Maybe not a meetup that's that's rubber banded, but in some other times, is there a way to do a ride where people could go for the sprint, or go for the first one up the top of a climb or something like that?
Right. So I've done some group rides that are not rubber banded, and then you don't stay together because some people are stronger than others. And you can do, I believe you can do sprints and get King of Mountains and things like that in that
Okay.
group. But you won't
Okay.
stay together because if I don't put out as much power as you put out, I would be way behind you.
So talk a little bit more about the community aspect of it. You say that you get 5 or 6 people on a ride, I think. Is that right?
We're usually about six, sometimes
Okay.
eight. And we talk. We know each other basically through cycling. We have ridden together outdoors. Some of the fellas I've on in our group have gone on the 1 week rides with me. So we know each other somewhat well through cycling. And then we have polite conversation typically and razz each other a little bit about sports, of course,
Okay.
and chit chat about the weather. But then when the work gets hard and we're all there sweating, it's amazing. The conversation kind of dies down.
Right. Right. Okay.
And then during the recovery period, we pick it back up.
Okay. I like it. That sounds great. And it sounds like these are people that are local, but they wouldn't have to be.
Right. And the furthest one we've had join us is a gal out in the Seattle area, and she joins us from time to time. And it's awfully early in the morning for her, but Tish gets up and joins us, and we have fun with that also.
Well, I'm going to join in. And it feels early, but again, at the same time, it'll be a good way to get up and get some things moving. I like to do rides in the afternoon because it helps me with my afternoon blood sugar, but I normally do a ride to burn off breakfast. So I'll just have to eat an early breakfast and burn it off on with you guys.
Yeah, so my routine then is I'll eat a bowl of some of that crazy oatmeal stuff from Costco, Kodiak.
Okay.
I'll eat
Okay.
a bowl of that at it starts at 9:30, so I'll eat it somewhere between 8 8:30.
Gotcha.
Just because it's easy. Drink some coffee, yeah, read
Yeah.
the papers and all that, and then get it up and running. And 9 o'clock, I start getting things organized. And 9:30, we leave the line. The good news is there's no shame in what you do. There's it's whatever you want to put into it. And with Zwift, you can increase and decrease your effort level even while you're riding.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, if it ain't your morning,
Yeah.
make it easy. I've had those. If you're feeling good, you can up it.
Well, I'm going to admit something here. You don't have to tell this to everybody on the ride, but I'm going to admit something here where I'm going to take down my FTP for this session just so that I can experience it as something new and I don't have to worry about the intensity. So you'll probably see me not struggling as much as I should be.
And so when you have this Swift screen up and you're doing it only from the screen and not your phone, below the workout box that has all the efforts, there'll be an up and down arrow. And that's where plus a minus sign, that's where you can increase or decrease your effort. So I'm with you. Lower your FTP going in, you can
Yeah.
always increase it up about another 10, 12%.
Yeah. I like
Or
it.
you can lower it 10 or 12%.
Yeah.
And frankly, nobody will know
Right.
except
That's
you.
right. That's right. That's a nice thing about it. I'll just pretend like I can't breathe and I'm struggling. So, so are you open to having this grow if can we invite people to join with you?
Well, the issue becomes the Zoom doesn't work with a lot of people.
Okay. Okay.
In all honesty, I'm not against people being on the ride. The other problem is the invite issue and
Okay.
communicating what we're riding.
Okay.
It
Hmm.
it the meetups are much more complicated than group rides
Okay.
because in a group ride, you're in a group and you just show up and it's all predetermined.
Yeah.
In the meetup, you have to select the workout and get all that functionality going.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'll probably I started working out the process of doing group rides. I think I'll probably try to get back to that for cycling over 60 is to have some group rides.
That's
And
what I would do as group rides
okay,
because they're much easier to organize and join.
gotcha. There's basically a starting area that you pop into, I think, on the group rides. Yeah.
We have one fellow that does it from the firehouse. And I mean, if he doesn't have it on mute and the alarm goes off, I mean, everybody knows it, and we know what's happening next. Mike
Right.
is gone,
Right.
but
Right.
if he's on, the other thing is then some people want to have music on, and
Yeah.
that doesn't work well.
Okay.
And I will mute them if they don't mute
Yeah.
themselves.
Gotcha. Okay. So talk about the future of your cycling.
Well, I'm 70 years old. I feel really great about cycling. I do some rides. This summer, I'm planning to do the Great Ohio Bike Adventure again. It's in Northwest Ohio. 3 nights camping at Port Clinton, which is right on Lake Erie. Ought to be beautiful. So I do those kinds of rides. My wife and I do rides during the summer on trails around here, either the Cardinal Greenway or down through downtown Indianapolis. That's about a 40-mile round trip. The other thing that my wife and I do when we are in Europe traveling, we do that quite a bit. This last summer, we were going to Gavarni, where the painter lived. And at the train station, you could rent bikes. We went to the place to rent bikes, and 3 or 4 other people were renting bikes at the same time. We did a group ride basically for the whole day, ate lunch with them, got back to the train. It's just one of those things that really worked.
That's fun.
Yeah, just 4 of us. So we do a lot of that type of riding, and I do a lot of the trail riding around here in Indianapolis or out in the countryside.
Yeah, it sounds like Zwift is a really nice tool for the future of your cycling as well.
Absolutely. I really enjoy it. I use it when the weather is too extreme in the summer. If the temperatures are above 85, heat and humidity index, whatever they call that heat index, I just have a tough time riding because I get dehydrated. And I should use my Camelback more, but it's just not as much fun. I'll do Zwift indoors then, and I'll do Zwift in the autumn. I've been doing indoor riding since late September, early October.
You mentioned a sledding accident that was an
Yes.
injury. Have you had any injury cycling?
The good news is, and I'm knocking on wood, I have never fallen over while moving on my bicycle. So the two caveats are I fell over 3 times when I was learning, 2 times learning how to use clips.
Okay.
And I fell over one time just absolutely standing still. And these kids saw me and they just started laughing at the park. That's life.
That is
Second
life.
time was, I don't know what's going on. Third time I was in a group ride and I always go to my left to plant my foot. We started going across the street and then everybody stopped. I couldn't go left. Person on my left was right there. I rolled over into a ditch. I wasn't rolling. Bike was right up and I was upside down like a turtle. Got back on my bike and was ready to roll. Next day I was sore, but those are the only 2 accidents I've had. My greatest challenge in cycling is hydration. And I sweat a lot. And if it gets hot and humid, I just don't ride as much anymore.
How about bike purchases in the future? Do you see anything coming along in that realm?
Well, talking with some friends at church that cycle, and we talk about buying bikes. Let's see here. It's cheaper to lose weight than to buy a lighter bike.
Right.
So if I lose 5 pounds, that's like buying a new bike.
Right.
So I think my goal should be to lose 5 pounds.
Gotcha. Okay.
Instead of buying a $5,000 bike.
Yeah.
I, at this point, have zero interest in getting an e-bike.
Okay.
And I think it's all about, another friend and I are in the exact same opinion. It's our thinking that we ride together quite a bit when we ride outdoors, and we can do what we do very well. So why go with an e-bike? Now, we may not go as fast as other groups, but we do what we want to do. And we can go on a 60-mile bike ride, and the 2 of us are okay with it, even though we stop for lunch and things like that.
Yeah, I can see the logic there for sure. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for coming on. I was so glad that you reached out to me and talked about what you're doing on Zwift, because I am interested in Zwift as a tool and staying with it. Thanks for coming on and talking about it.
My pleasure. And I look forward to more podcasts from you to learn more about cycling and one's health.
Yeah, and I look forward to tomorrow morning. And
it will be a challenge, and we're up for it, and we'll have fun.
Nice. All right. Take care now.
My pleasure. All the best.
I did manage to get online to join Bruce and crew for their Zwift ride. I really enjoyed the ride together, and particularly them as a group. I really want to praise Bruce for being an excellent group leader. Despite me being new to the process, he got me into the ride with 30 seconds to spare. Bruce did such a great job explaining the workout and just providing things that kept the conversation going. It was actually a bit intimidating because he did so well. By the end, I felt even more committed to getting Cycling Over 60 Zwift rides going. I think I will use the group ride function rather than doing a meetup, but we'll just have to see what works. It's a new year and new Strava stats. As always, I am loving the images of rides being shared on Strava. I'm seeing some riding conditions that look impressive and challenging. I am just consistently inspired by everyone who posts on the Cycling Over 60 Strava Club. If you are on Strava, please consider joining us there. I hope everyone is set for a great year of cycling. And remember, age is just a gear change.